we help busy entrepreneurs looking to break through to make small changes in their thinking using mind models, which enable them to gain the clarity needed to accomplish their goals faster and more easily. So basically, we are breaking into mind models, and again, just working on my book. Mine's good to. I was going to say good to great. It's not, but it's good to excellent. No, it's not.
It's good to effective, Blair.
Good to effective is what it is. Thank you. So good to effective. Where we're working on developing mind models and giving you guys the background. It's just the more that I'm researching it, the more that I'm absolutely clear about how the huge need for mind models versus mindset. Mind models have been around for well over 100 years, came about as part of the Industrial Revolution, and that mindset that went with that Industrial Revolutionary mindset was taking people off the farm, basically off an agricultural, actually centuries of agricultural mindset of everything is basically farm-based and rural and that whole thing, where everything was brought up. And then the Industrial Revolution started, and cottage industries popped up early stages. But when the Industrial Revolution really took off, there were cottage-based industries, and the vast majority was actually agriculture. And they needed, the factories needed workers, a workforce to come in. So they actually had to actively pull people, not pull them by going and grabbing them, but they needed to entice workers off the farms, out of the small towns and villages, into a better life. And they did a lot of things well. Eventually they did a lot of things well. They created homes for people so that you had the business, literally homes made, but they became pretty low-end homes pretty quickly. But in the start, it was actually an upgrade. So people actually got off the farm, got into regular employment, and mindset started being focused in on getting everybody to behave the same way and to show up. And there was a town bell. And the bell was not to call people to school, but to church. It was to wake everybody up at the same time every day, like an alarm clock, and the town would all rise together and show up for work and do all that. And that regimen really did work well for basically the nobles of the day, and the business owners of the day were the entrepreneurs, were the ones that were actually reaping the huge benefits and whatnot. But they needed to condition workers who were used to doing things on their own schedule to start getting people into being all working together and having common beliefs. Common beliefs are important when you're taking care or trying to take care of a large community. They still are important today. However, today we don't have common communities that are necessarily in the same location. Like right now, we have a community of people that are talking right here, right now. And we have John, you're from Florida, someplace. Yep. And where are you from, Rebecca? Utah. And then Trevor and I are up here in Canada, Alberta, and we're all creating a little community right now. So we don't have those same issues. And mindset stuff does not work well under these set of conditions, but mind models do. Mindset was to teach people how to stay in a positive view about things that were well known and just stay positive, and you can execute on them. Literally, I found stories about people in the same businesses where they would be, maintenance people would repair and maintenance guys for factories would literally have generational training that would happen, and they would pass that training on down to their sons, and that job description would stay for generations, like 2 or 3 generations it would stay, which is, 20 to 50 years. It would be the same thing. You don't get a job description today that lasts much longer than a week or 3 weeks maximum, and then it changes. There was actually a study done up here in Alberta, and a job description changed. This is like 15 years ago. The job description changes in less than a week, in days. So, I mean, it just isn't the same. We have to adapt. We have to tweak things. We have to change. And we need some way of being able to think differently. And the rules of life require us to adapt and change rather than learn something, perfect it, do it over and over and over again, and you'll get a great result. That's not how it works anymore. You've got to be able to do elements of that, but you also have to be able to adapt to the markets as the markets are changing so rapidly. I mean, if you have a smartphone, 10 years ago, were there really any decent smartphones? Not really. If you go back 15 years, we didn't even have that technology in any way, shape, or form. We're already talking about, we haven't even gotten to the point of having autonomous cars that being commonplace, but everybody's already talking about computers taking over and autonomous cars on our roadways, and all of that being expected to take place in the next 15 years, and going to complete autonomy or nearly total autonomy in a very short period of time. And Europe has banned the use of ICE, internal combustion engines, in their vehicles. Well, not banned, it said that they won't be selling new vehicles with internal combustion by 2030. So, I mean, the world is going through an upheaval, a change that we have never, ever, ever seen before. So just sharing. Anyway, so today, note, like, there has never been a point in time where it has been this needed to start understanding what we're going to talk about tonight. And tonight it's about leading the charge, and it's about change, and you being able to drive change yourself, and you being able to change where you're going and how you're getting there. Anyway, I'm going to just go straight to you, Sherry and John, and just ask you about what changes are you guys driving in your lives today? So, Rebecca.
What changes am I driving in my life today?
Yeah, what's new and different?
Well, currently, like, as far as business goes, working on a whole new separate funnel, which is something I've never done before, putting pieces that together, consistently working on the mind models so that I'm staying effective and really evaluating each piece as I go so that I can be resourceful and effective in what I'm doing.
So, okay, that's perfect. I mean, I'll come back to you in a moment. I don't want to give it all away and alienate John here, but John, what are you up to?
I today took an exam and earned a certification as a social media strategist. And that was the 10th certification I've earned since last April. So I'm driving a lot of change in terms of upgrading my skills and validating the skills that I've had to move forward towards creating a consulting business.
Excellent. So again, so what's the point of this? What was the point of you getting those 10 certifications? And for you, Rebecca, what's the point of you going out there and starting to build your own funnel?
Because I want something better in my life. I want to better myself. I want to be able to have more value to give to others, to in turn increase the value of my own life.
Absolutely. And then what do you notice, John, about what she just said? I'm gonna start getting you guys thinking about that. And if you guys in the audience here want to join in on the chat, that would be just fine. So,
well, I heard her say basically she wants to create change, and change that she's got influence over.
And how come? What's the driver?
Better life, she said, improving.
Right. Exactly. She wants to get a better life. Trevor, do you have anything to add to this?
I was going to go sort of like the necessity route, kind of following with the theme you were talking about at the beginning of the webinar, how it's a necessity to keep growing and changing and upgrading. If you don't want to like fall behind, essentially.
Absolutely. I mean, personal gratification is what Jamie was saying. Scott, more freedom. Jamie, always to always be better. Scott, to help more people. Absolutely, all of the above. But what are you guys noticing? I mean, and John, Rebecca, what did you notice about what John was saying?
He was actively going out to develop new skill sets so that he can, again, reach more people, and he can further his goals and his results that he wants in his own life. Again, serving other people, providing value to the marketplace, and in return, increasing his own value.
Okay, I want to really focus in on that and go. Leading the charge was the one of the two main lines in this a topic tonight. And leading the charge can only be done from the front. So really what it comes down to is you have to lead the charge. And Dwayne is saying, if you don't swim upstream, you'll end up in a stagnant pool. Well, sort of. The thing here is you don't want to necessarily get caught in an eddy and just go around and around and around and wait for something to pop you out. What you want to do is pick your course and take your piece of the pie, as it were. You want to go after your stuff and do it, as best you can in a way that, as you just said there, Rebecca, provides value to somebody else. Because if you cannot provide value to somebody else, what happens to your ability to make income?
It's gone, or it decreases drastically.
Absolutely. You cannot be able to do anything of substance with that. And if you're waiting around for other people to act or other people to push and prod you and move you in a direction, what do you wind up? What winds up to you and your life? John?
You wind up on the sidelines.
You wind up exactly on the sidelines. And so that's one of the core drivers. And what do we need to do? What are the skill sets and behaviors, the mind models, really, that we need to pull in so that we can see how we're doing, whether or not we're moving in a direction that's meaningful or not?
Oh, I'd say evaluation. You kind of gave it away there.
Absolutely. I almost gave it away. But what kind of evaluation are we going after?
Self-evaluation.
Bingo. And we want to evaluate ourselves. And we want to do it in a way that actually focuses on what? Rebecca, what do we want to focus on?
Externally verifiable data points.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. How come that? What drives that?
Your behaviors drive that.
Your behaviors drive it. But what is in your thinking? What caused you to go there for going, it's got to be externally verifiable? What makes that effective?
Because that's the only way you can quantify and measure and actually truly evaluate. Otherwise, it's internal and it's just around in your head.
And it's basically you can BS yourself to death.
Getting caught up in your own imagination.
Yeah. And I mean, you hold yourself stuck and you didn't even realize it, and you can wind up blaming others. But at this point in time, you wind up testing out what works, what doesn't work, and you can ask if somebody else sees this as being reasonable or effective or blah, blah, blah. It winds up being reasonable, effective, externally verifiable. You can test for the change, how you move forward, what you're doing to lead the charge, what you do differently. So what happens if you get stuck? What probably has occurred? John or Rebecca? Rebecca, you're smiling. What?
Well, if you get stuck, it's because you're not taking action. You haven't done anything to be able to have data points to go off of to be able to say, okay, what worked, what didn't, what might I change? Because you're not doing anything. And it's usually because you're stuck in a past future loop and you're skipping the now because you're not actually doing anything.
So true. So you wind up, as Scott said here, lose self-confidence. Absolutely. What causes that self-confidence to drop, actually? John, any ideas? Like Scott has a great point there. So losing self-confidence.
From being stuck?
Yeah. You know what, guys? I just had a brainwave here. We've got really good impact from everybody on, the chat tonight and everything like that. Is there... okay, here's what it is. Would you guys like to have a group chat with everybody here tonight? Like all on the panel so we can talk to one another, ask questions of one another, and just really integrate this collectively? Because I think we've got, first of all, enough skills, but I want to get these deeper. And I'd like to take them 2 or 3 levels deeper. I mean, you guys have both been excellent. John, Rebecca, you're both spot on. You're both giving great responses, but they're first tier responses. They're fine, but we could be getting this deeper if you wanted to.
Let's do it.
Sure. So if anybody wants to join,
Jamie's in.
Raise your hand, and we'll also add you, and we'll experiment with you.
Okay, Jamie raised her hand. Brent, I'd love to see you back in. Dwayne, John,
do you want to join us?
Dwayne raised his hand. Scott, love to have you back on. Share, same thing. Hey, Tim. Tim's there as well, too.
One thing I was going to add is if someone gets stuck, they're probably not asking effective questions.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to come in here and start going, okay, so how can we change the rules of the game a little bit to make things more effective? That's one of the things.
Like right now?
Well, yeah, but at any point in time.
Is Scott in? He said he wanted to be in.
Yeah, Scott says I'm in.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Jamie.
And John Sue, if you want to join us too, just let me know if you're able to.
Oh, that's very bizarre there, Scott. He's got a background green screen that's not working quite right.
I did that the other day.
There we go. You got to unmute yourself in the bottom left-hand corner. There you go.
I didn't have a green screen, so I was trying out the virtual background without a green screen.
Yeah.
John Sue says he'd like to join too. He wasn't sure.
I already got him.
Okay, cool.
Brent and Cher, if you guys want to join in, that's super.
Hey, John, it looks like you're using your back webcam. So it looks like we're looking at a plastic bag or something. To change, if you're not familiar with Zoom, in the bottom left-hand corner, you can press the little arrow next to the stop video button, and then you change which camera you're using. You'll also have to turn your mic on. Yeah, you got the camera there. So now to unmute yourself, you just press the unmute button, which should be, yeah, looks like you got it.
There we go. Now we get to see your handsome face. Cool.
Okay.
Cool. So,
Right. Now what, Blair?
Okay, so we're back in. So, Cher, Brent, if you guys want to join us, please feel free. But if you want to be our audience of a few people, very few of 2, then that's fine. So, questions, comments. What are you guys doing to literally lead the charge? What makes this an important, well, not only an important topic, but something to do for yourself? Like what actually drives it? So I'm gonna start off with Tim, actually, with Rebecca and Tim. So Tim, what causes this to be important?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is if you're not trying to improve yourself and get outside your comfort zone and move forward every day, you're basically, you're going to stay stuck. You're going to stay in the same place.
More than likely, yes. So again, where does that lead you? What does that stuck state cause? Jamie, what do you think that stuck state causes? And then I'm going to go to you, Scott, next.
Stress. I think people aren't happy. And so you're feeling very unfulfilled, depressed. I think that's where that goes.
Yes, it does. We're going to build on that in a moment. Scott, do you have anything to add to that?
No, you just get depressed and start going backwards and where you're headed.
Okay. What causes people to have happiness? Okay. Literally, like there's a lot of, not a lot, there's some recent research that is out there, and it's based on happiness.
Progress towards a goal.
Overcoming a challenge.
Partially. That's part of it.
Having a challenge.
Having a challenge, absolutely.
And overcoming it.
Sorry?
Overcoming, working through a problem or struggle or challenge and coming out the other side.
Yes, but the problem or a struggle and coming out the other side is an important process of happiness. But what does that whole process give you?
Self-confidence.
It does. But what about purpose?
Purpose and meaning.
Right. And do we have happiness in our life? Do we actually feel like that sense of fulfillment if we don't have purpose?
No. I noticed I've lost when I don't have purpose, I lose that. And that usually is the beginning of a downward spiral.
Exactly. And so without purpose, without focus, without intention, if you wind up waiting for other people to start something, then the problem is if you wait for it, you get into this habit pattern of waiting for things, and it doesn't drive change. So, Constance, hey, Connie. So, because we have two Johns on, so John K and John Sue.
You can call me Constance, and I'll answer.
Yeah, I thought you'd be okay with that. So, sorry, what was that?
I said he's done it before.
Yeah, he's done it before. Thanks, Connie. So, yeah. That was the voice of Connie in the background. So anyway, so John, you know what? When you're out there and you're not leading the charge and you're waiting, what happens? Like what happens to you personally? What happens to the people around you? What happens?
There's a sense of loss of control, of just being pushed around by events rather than making choices.
How important is it for you to actually have a sense of control?
I think it's pretty important.
Okay, talk to me about that, because I know you've been there. When I first met you, you were sort of there.
Well,
out of control or not having control.
Yeah, feeling of being out of control is a kind of a helpless feeling, and I mean, we recognize. I recognize that there's only I can really only control what's inside myself. We've talked about control versus influence as the mind model, but in terms of directing one's life or career or whatever, having a sense of direction and control over how it's unfolding is extremely important to enjoying life. If you just, if you're just waiting to be told what to do, or if you're in a situation where you can only do what you're told, that's pretty powerless.
Anybody got any comments on what that does to a person? Anybody have any experiences about that they'd care to share?
I think you feel defeated.
Yeah.
So then when you're defeated, you have a hard time getting up and moving forward. And so, because I think while you're fulfilling a purpose, you get momentum and it just kind of keeps going. So when you don't, you get defeated and get in your own head and you get in your own way. And
what does getting in your own way look like?
I think it could be self-sabotage.
Right.
Fear of success. So you stop doing things, or fear of failure, whichever. They're different, but the same.
Yes, they are different on the same continuum. Scott, you were wanting to get in there?
Just you slow down, you lose faith, you back off, you just stop doing things. You basically get into a position where you start doing things that are bad for you, like watching more TV or just getting away from moving forward.
Absolutely. John Sue, do you have any comments to add to that? Can't hear you. Sorry.
Hear me?
Nope, not yet.
Yeah, when you went closer, I heard you say, "Can you hear me?"
Hello?
Yeah.
Barely.
Bad now? I don't know.
Oh, geez. Your mic is so weak. Sorry.
Yeah, I checked the volume.
I was able to hear you, though, when you were close to it.
Yeah, but it was...
What do you want? While he's doing that, I'm going to get a snack for a 20-pound cat. Excuse me.
Okay. And Dwayne, while John's sorting out his mic there, maybe Dwayne, you could jump in here and go, like, what is it? And can we start thinking about what are the consequences of these actions if we don't figure this stuff out? What might we do differently?
Well, when I'm feeling stuck, I start procrastinating things.
Okay, and
I just don't get off the couch and get things done. I'm stuck.
I think, and some people, I think, move into more of a victim mentality.
Thank you. That's well done.
Yeah.
That's what you were looking for?
Yes, that is what I was looking for.
I had that on.
That victim mode.
Minutes.
And people start seeing themselves as the person that is the brunt of life, of history, of whatever, and they can't seem to break out of it easily once you adopt basically a new persona. So success breeds success, but unfortunately, that stuck state, that depressed state, fixates on that stuckness, and you tend to stay there more and more and more, and you don't break out of it. You don't figure out another way. You look at the past and what has caused you to be stuck, as opposed to what causes you to move forward. And that's one of the things. I mean, we have a number of you guys, 1, 2, 3, 4 of you out of the people that are on this, and myself, so that would be 5. I'm going to be there, so 1, 2. Out of the 8 people that are here, 5 of us are going to be going into the mind model coach training. Well, I'm going to be teaching it, but so out of the 7 of you that are on, 4 of you are going to be coming into here, into Mind Model Coach training. Part of the thing that I am seriously wanting you guys to look at is to take it to the next level and to start figuring out, what are those consequences? What is the natural, probable outcome? Not what is. We have to make assumptions, but we have to make intelligent assumptions. So we know how to start looking at ourselves, and we know how to influence others out of where they are. So that's one of the key elements that I'd like you guys to start taking a look at here. That's what I wanted to do about
Repeat
getting
that
deeper.
last sentence.
Sorry, say that again, Jamie.
Repeat that last sentence. You want us to start looking at what?
What others, like not just yourself,
Right.
but what is the likely, like higher probability thing? What have you seen others do? What is externally verifiable? When you've seen somebody else in a depression, what behaviors have you noticed that they do?
Oh, got it. Okay.
One of the things they tend to do is refer to the past and explain why they are like they are and kind of justify it and actually defend it and hold on to it in a way.
And when they do that, what happens as a consequence?
They become more stuck.
They become more stuck. And what do they wind up doing with the people around them?
Trying to drag them into their position.
Say that one again, Dwayne.
Trying to drag them into their downward spiral.
Yes. I mean, that's one of those things that, what's that saying? It's something about, it's almost like sharing the pain of it. You know, you want to spread the pain.
Misery loves.
Yeah.
Misery loves
company.
That's it. Yes. And you want to engage people in your pity party. And you just want to stay in there and saying, woe is me, woe is me. And you're practicing staying stuck.
Yeah, I think what I would say is they try to bring you down to their level.
They do.
And what I've also said is because if they don't, then they have to really take a look at themselves inward. And then they have to change something, and change is what is very hard. So it's easier just to keep people where you are and justify that. So
one of the things that I'd like you to start looking at is I'm going to challenge change is very hard. So when you started learning mind models, was it hard for you guys to start learning them and adapting, and what happened with the change? Okay, Scott, you're really nodding your head. What are you noticing? What was there?
Well, you find ideas that try to make it so that you don't have to do it, because you'd say it's too difficult. I mean, I'm so used to doing it this way, and
yes, absolutely true. But when you actually started learning the mind models, was it actually difficult?
No.
No. How come? Rebecca?
It's simple change. It's just very simple and it's incremental, just repeated over and over again. It's not like you're moving an entire mountain at once. You're just working on the little pieces as it goes, and it gets easier as you focus on those pieces because you're building off of it. It's not an actual hard task.
No, it's not a hard task. What makes it not a hard task? John Cooter.
Because they're kind of natural. I mean, you said, the mind models basically are things that are already in our subconscious. We're just becoming conscious of them and using them intentionally. And so, they just make sense. Once you get them, they're kind of hard to forget.
Absolutely true. This is a critical piece of all the research that I did. And you guys have to start, well, you don't have to, but I would suggest that you actually start engaging around that and saying, okay, how come mind models how much change did you go through with mind models, John Cooter?
Wow, I'm not sure because it's still happening. But
yes, I know. But where I met you first and where you are now is you're not actually the same guy.
No, matter of fact, I was here when you first got on, and I think, and that's odd you said that, because I was going to suggest, John, that you go back and watch that video. It was almost painful to watch how much stress you were in on that one episode, because you were not being able to meet a lot of things. You had all sorts of things coming on. You had a renter, I think, that was you were frustrated with. And you could not think straight. And you are such a different person now. It's amazing. And it's been so much fun to watch from that very first one you were on to now. It's like, oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I was just thinking about that.
That's perfect. No, that's perfect. Dwayne.
External validation. That's great.
Absolutely. It's externally verifiable. Dwayne.
He has a smile now.
Yeah.
That's so true.
When he was first on, he was so serious looking, and now he has a smile.
Exactly.
Yeah, you really should go back and watch it, John. I think you would amaze yourself and see what we see, because it is absolutely like incredible.
We should do a watch party.
I mean, I could make excuses, but I'm not going to, because I'm sure you're right.
Rebecca, you were saying something. Sorry.
I was going to say we should all do a watch party and go back and watch it, John.
Yeah, really.
I have gotten a lot more comfortable being in the hot seat.
It's not just being in the hot seat. It's like how you are, like, and the over the months of this, how you've been sharing how you've transformed yourself, and kept on getting things worked out and resolved. So that's huge difference. You know, it's quite literally night and day for you in particular.
Awesome.
But was it difficult for you to make these changes, John?
No.
How come? What caused them not to be difficult? Because I'll tell you, you were somebody that generally in life, everything that you shared in the early days was a difficulty. Life was not an easy thing. Life was one challenge, one difficulty after another. Okay, and you didn't have a clear path, and it was going from, frankly, from what appeared to be disappointment to disappointment.
That's pretty accurate. That's how I felt. That's pretty accurate.
Because now he has a process.
Exactly. And what does that process focus on? Tim, what does it focus on? This is that next level stuff I was telling you. I'm wanting. Of
course, my mind just went blank. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank, Blair.
Okay, so Dwayne, pardon me.
He's focusing on now.
He's focusing on now.
Right. This right.
And what was he focusing on before?
Past.
Exactly.
Or past future. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And what was which question was dominating his life?
Why?
Now, I haven't taught you the question concepts. I've just role modeled how to work around without knowing the question concepts. When you get into training, you'll be learning the question concepts, and you'll start seeing how much more effective you can be. But you don't need to know the question concepts. All I'm doing is basically teaching you simple things, fundamental skill sets, mind models, and just role modeling how to be basically out of stuck states and how to get somebody curious and moving forward into that level of functionality and saying, okay, how do I change my life? What might I do differently? And life can change. And so, Jamie, I'm coming back to your spot here, because your comment is that change is difficult. Change is challenging.
Yeah, I don't think it's difficult. Matter of fact, that's probably one thing that I flow with pretty good. And it's
you do.
But I will say that most people are like afraid of change. So, even when you deal with
what causes that fear of change?
Because they have to go internal. And
No, I want to challenge that, because give me a more cogent argument.
okay, that they're fearful of failing or fearful of what the next step is unseen.
Okay, so let's take a look at fear, because I taught this mind model of fear. Fear is what?
Hold on,
Go
I've got
for it.
notes.
Future events appearing real.
Right. Future events appearing real. Okay. Even if we're taking something in the past, we're projecting it in the future and saying, see, it'll happen to me again.
Again, right. Oh, good. Yeah.
So it's projecting stuff that has happened or you think might happen and projecting it into the future as though it's happened to you.
What do you guys notice about people that are constantly worrying about stuff all the time in relation to what Blair was just
I try to stay away from them.
Okay. But what do you actually notice about like their behavior patterns with that in relation to what Blair just said?
Pick a person, Trevor.
John Cooter, since we're still not sure if Sue's mic's working.
Wow. Well, you picked the right guy.
Oh, it did work there, John.
Barely. He had to get in really close.
Oh.
Yeah.
Try again.
No. Yeah, it's just messed up. Okay. It's Cooter, you're up.
Okay. Wow. That's me. I mean, I worry, and I would worry about having things to worry about if I.
Oh, hold it. I wish we had instant replay. You know what? He said, I worry, and then he corrected himself. I would worry. Did you guys hear that?
Yep.
Okay. This is critical for when you're listening to people. What do you absolutely know happened for John?
He corrected himself.
He self-corrected.
Right.
On the fly. It wasn't a true statement, so he self-corrected on the fly.
Yeah.
And that is his new conscious state of being in the now. He wants to be, well, most people don't like lying. So if they tell a white lie to themselves, they actually do this little thing where they course correct, they correct themselves. And he put himself into the past like he used to, but then brought himself into the present like he's been doing all day or all on this call up to now. And when he slid back to how he used to be, his brain says, I don't want to go there. I want to stay where I am. I'm a happier guy here. Life is better. I've got future stuff. I'm going in the future. And I'm going to start doing this now, moving in that positive direction to go towards my new future. But I'm doing it now. Okay, so this is critical. We have to listen to that. That was absolutely brilliantly done, totally unplanned. $5 later, John.
Okay.
But seriously, listen for that. When you listen deeply, you will hear people literally tell you and course correct on the fly when their version of themselves that they used to have is no longer true for them.
Well, and as somebody that if you get certified in this, that would be a point where I would think you would say and give them kind of kudos to establish so they would know they did it.
Yeah,
right?
It depends on what it is that you want.
Yeah.
But you want to hear it as a mind model coach. You want to listen for those types of shifts so that you can determine this is not an opinion anymore. This is fact that he changed his language himself without any interference from anybody, and he just updated. Mm-hmm. And that is what is true. We have it on tape or we have it recorded so we can prove to him that he did this. And we've got witnesses. So all of which is true.
Verified.
Okay?
Verified. So you were asking about worry and what was the question was, what does it look like or what what is it?
You're talking about the question I was asking, or what Blair was asking?
Yeah,
I was just asking what you guys notice about people that do tend to worry all the time, and what you're noticing about their actual behavior pattern. And I was tying it back to what Blair, I was just basically attacking it from a different angle from what Blair already talked about with fear and the future events appearing real piece. Because from my perspective, that is what I see people doing when, like, if think of your grandma or someone that you know that worries like crazy about everything, they're projecting a bunch of negative events happening in the future and then worrying about all that stuff. That's what I notice, at least.
Oh yes, I would say that's a very accurate description, and they seem very real. You know, when you, even if you're thinking in terms of probabilities of what's likely to happen, those things that are easily described as being highly unlikely to the person who is caught in worrying, they seem equally likely with the sun coming up. I mean, it's just, there's no discrimination there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what causes that probability to be so predominant?
Because they thought about it.
Warrior's mind. What drives
they
it?
loop it.
They loop it. They practice it over and over and over again. And by practicing it over and over and over again, what have they developed?
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
That's self-fulfilling prophecy. Absolutely true.
It's a habit pattern.
And those are the two answers I was looking for: self-fulfilling prophecy and habit pattern. And a habit pattern is what happens neurophysiologically in your brain with habits? Anybody?
Well, they're just firing the same neuron and the pathway. It's a well-developed pathway.
It is a well-developed pathway. And what causes that pathway to become well-developed? What makes it so simple?
The emotion.
Yes, but what else?
Petition?
I think you explained something about the neurons. They get, or the pathways actually get thicker, but it becomes the path of least resistance.
Yes, it is literally that. This is science right now, guys. Neuroscience. It is truly a path of least resistance. It takes less electrical energy in your brain to create more chemical. Every synapse joint has a firing mechanism that fires off the chemicals that transmit over to the other side of the synapse. When those chemicals pass over, every time you fire that synapse, it modifies itself slightly to become more efficient. A more efficient conductor or projector of those neurochemicals. So the neurochemicals get sort of splatted over to the other side or projected to the other side, which creates an electrical charge in that neuron. And that neuron, it goes down at the speed of light down to the next electrical charge. It slows down there to get fire up and charge and jump across the gap and keep on going. The issue with all of this here is it becomes more efficient with less energy. The brain is all about doing things more efficiently. So your brain will start drilling down, and in habits, you actually do them because it burns the least amount of calories. Okay? Mm-hmm. Your brain is always saying, how can I conserve energy?
It's literally the easy way out for them now.
Literally. It literally is.
Well, weren't you saying on one of the other episodes that for your brain to learn and do better, you have to be getting it out of its comfort zone and challenging, right? Mm-hmm. Weren't you giving that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to actually push beyond that limit of that comfort zone. But the interesting thing here is, what if these are all of the terms that are not terms. These are all of the realities that I was facing back when I was developing mind models. And I was thinking about this and I'm going, okay, so what if I took things, habits, like speaking? Do you actually have to think that hard when you're speaking? or do words sort of almost fall out of your mouth? You, Sammy, have this subconscious thought that's in the back of your head, this direction you talk in. And I don't know about you guys, but when I'm thinking, my brain is quiet. It's like I'm not talking to myself, but I know I'm thinking about something. So I got to think about it for a second, and then words fall out of my mouth, right? But they're appropriate words. They're on topic. They've self-sorted in that subconscious part, gray matter that we call a brain. Well, it's firing around up there. It has habits of where to go already, of picking words, of choosing pathways. What if I could get language working for me rather than against me? So what if there are patterns of words that precondition us to behave more effectively, more appropriately, more efficiently, and just get generally more success in our life? What if they're actually those patterns? And what if I started taking a look at it, and evaluation versus judgment is one of those? And what if I caused people to think about evaluation in a way that they already know more or less what evaluation is, and that they don't mind being evaluated, but they hate being judged? Mm-hmm. Well, what does judgment do for most people? It causes a large negative emotional reaction for people, mm-hmm. and they become defensive. Well, does that take more energy or less energy?
More.
A lot more.
Yeah.
So if you could actually give somebody a methodology of evaluation, help them refine it slightly, but basically have them have something that they already sort of know fairly well, and bring it to the conscious level in their mind, and give them a way to play with it in daily life that actually burns less energy than judgment, you're going to be able to influence that person into being able to evaluate more so than they judge. And that's the whole purpose of mind models. Like, at a technical level, mind models are just this extremely hard thinking to make something super simple. You know, at the end of the day, you got to find the thing that actually already works and takes less energy to do it in a way that's effective. And success, I mean, when you learn the question concepts, you're going to learn this reality that mind models or question concepts prove that you have 9 chances for success to 1 chance of failure. Those are the odds of success versus failure in life. Okay. And
most people would think it's the reverse.
Oh, absolutely. They totally do. But unfortunately, you also have 26 chances to stay stuck.
Now we see all the sides of the dice.
Exactly. Now the last shoe falls. So stuck states are the common state.
Right.
The next most common state should be success, but it isn't. Because people will give up. And my definition of failure is not giving up and trying again, because that's when you can't move forward. There is no ability to be successful. So you're now in a permanent stuck state.
You mean when you do give up and don't get up again?
Yeah, you literally do give up and just shift. I mean, here's the whole thing of that study that said, how many attempts do people make before they give up? Well, 1.2. is the proven answer.
That's sad.
Pardon me?
I think that's sad.
That's tragic, but that's what
1.2.
1.2. Most people will try once. Unfortunately, some people will try twice. Actually, some people won't even try a new thing at all.
Yeah.
At all, because they don't want to fail.
Right.
So they write that whole thing off. So they can't move ahead. They cannot be successful because they make no attempt to change, no attempt to become successful. Okay.
I have a question, Blair.
Fire.
So this just brought up a thought. Because so many people, just like the statistic that you said about question concepts, that it will bring to light, that we've got 9 chances for success, 1 for failure, but 26 basic opportunities to stay stuck. It just got me thinking, society, because of all these people that are those crabs that want to pull us down, they're priming us every single day by their language patterns to stay in that same.
Are you going to say stuck state? You're unfortunately, your computer froze.
Language to move out of that.
Sorry, you okay.
Your connection went to shit there for a bit.
Oh man!
Right when you said stuck.
Right
Yeah.
at goal.
It was very appropriately stuck right when you said stuck.
Lost you right after you said that society's priming us with the language.
Well, because of the language patterns that we hear all the time, okay, the stuff that we've learned since we were little, you know, just the little shifts in language that we've learned through the mind models, you know, it's very subtle. It's just a small shift. It's natural. Yet, I guess the thought that was brought to me with the statistic about, you know, the chances for success versus failure, and then the opportunity to become stuck. You know, we're being primed by society. Most people, their environment is priming them for one thing. So that's how come mind models are so powerful, because it's just a very simple tweak to the language that they're using that are priming you for success, because now you're using effective words that are positive, that are getting you to that next level. I was listening to Malcolm Gladwell's book about priming and some of the studies that they were doing, Blink. And so that thought just popped into my head about the priming, the question concept, asking effective questions, priming your person to help them get resourceful in that manner.
And when you learn how to ask questions using the question concepts, you can actually influence somebody else's brain, because you've asked questions to get them resourceful. But you don't have to get them resourceful. They get themselves resourceful. You just have to put up the curbs with questions so that they stay in an area where their brain must become resourceful.
Cool.
Okay, I think that was pretty clever way to figure it out. And the really, really super cool thing is you don't even need to know what their problem is to be able to get them resourceful, because their problem is their problem. The language pattern that they question themselves around, you can cause that to be influenced in a way by the questions you asked. Their brain actually has to engage with questions and at least understand it to dismiss it, or understand it to resolve it. That's a weird thing about questions. Statements you don't actually have to understand to ignore. Okay?
Touché.
If you think about it, you don't have to understand a statement in order to ignore it. But you can't, your brain basically can't ignore automatically a question. You have to understand it, or you have to, if you don't actually understand the question, you can misinterpret the question, but that's a misinterpretation, which can create its own set of problems. But if you understand the statement, you can choose to ignore it. But if you understand a question, you actually have to really work at pushing it off to the side and go, I don't want.
It kind of stays with you.
Yeah, it does. And most
whether
of the time,
you admit it or not.
Exactly.
So Blair, it sounds like there's a real clear distinction between getting people resourceful and solving their problems.
Huge.
In fact, I'm guessing that you would say you actually don't solve a problem, you just move past it, right? Because
no, you don't actually move past it at all. Not as a mind model coach. You help your client move to their own resourcefulness, and they actually wind up with multiple solutions. See, in the old day of mindset, you only needed one solution. Think of the root of the word solution. It's soul, which comes from the sun, or one. Okay? One right thing. A solution is one right thing.
Yep.
Okay? So, but today, the speed of change is so freaking awesomely fast. It's like, okay, what was known to be correct a year ago is now disproved, and there's new proof for other things. Okay. We now know that quantum spooky events at a distance is true. Spooky actions at a distance. Einstein's spooky actions at a distance. There was a test done a year or two ago that took two quasars that were approximately, each were approximately 8 billion years old, and their light comes in at random times, like it flickers in its own thing because of what happened 8 billion years ago. And they said, okay, we don't have the ability to influence that, so we're going to use that as the triggering mechanism to pick filters, one of two filters. And so they have two different filters on a one beam of laser beam of light sends a photon in two different directions. And when it hits the detector, does the detector detect the same thing or different? In other words, are these the same particle in two physical locations, or are they two different particles? And it's basically Bohr's definition of quantum mechanics and the subatomic level. And Einstein said that's crazy because it's these spooky actions at a distance. And he had this whole theory that he was trying to disprove it. But in fact, he created the argument for a test to actually be performed, not in his lifetime, but in ours. And they actually figured out how quantum effects actually occur, which means that there's this whole thing where it's not 0 or 1, it's 0 and 1. It's not an on-off, it's both on and off simultaneously in a transistor, because transistors make up computers. So it can be both on and off, or it can be on, or it can be off. And the reality of those filters filtered out how each thing should be. Well, does it actually prove that those particles are actually the same particle? And the short answer is yes. And the triggering mechanism was an event that happened, two events that actually happened from two different stars, two different quasars 8 billion years ago.
Wow.
So that was huge because
So
it proved,
Einstein was correct.
sort of. He was also wrong and right. Like, his argument was the argument that caused his rival to be proved correct, but he gave the methodology, which his rival didn't figure out how to prove him wrong or right, but it wound up proving him correct.
So he asked the right questions.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't ask the effective question for that moment. So that was the whole thing. And yeah, it's mind-blowing when you think about this stuff, about what happens. And it's all done with the questions. If you question what is reality, you come up with these weird answers at different levels of reality. But what happens with people and our reality? Can we actually understand somebody more deeply based on knowing and being able to determine on the fly which questions they're processing the information with between their ears in real time? And that's what my model coach training will be teaching you guys how to do. Now, it's not profiling, but it gets close to figuring out how people are thinking so that you can re-ask questions to get people who are currently in a stuck state 80% of the time or better into an unstuck state. In other words, a resourceful state. And cause them to be able to resolve their own issues. That, I think, is cool.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And that is what you're going to be learning how to do. Okay. I can either go deeper into this and keep talking for another 2 hours, as Trevor was concerned about his. I said I was tired, and now he said, Blair, you're going to just get yourself all charged up and ready to go for whatever, or we're going to wrap it up early, and not early, but on close to an hour. And I think we should start looking at wrapping this up now, because it'll probably take us 20 minutes to wrap it up. We've got so many people on this call. So I'd like you guys to be thinking about this. I'd like you to pick one or two top takeaways that you took from. What did you discover about yourself? What did you discover about mind models? What did you think about or get reinforced? One of those three things. What did you discover about mind models that actually causes you to shift your thinking and move forward more effectively? So think about that. And then how effective was this for you on a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, definitely the question thing, asking the question rather than giving the statement. That was cool for me. And
very cool.
An 8.
Thank you. That is a big one. If you start practicing asking more effective questions, you get to change your life and influence others.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Dwayne.
I think the thing that really got me the most about everything we learned tonight was that people will only attempt 1.2 times before they stop.
I know.
That statistic was kind of staggering. And just the fact that mind models, the question concepts leading to mind models will give you 9 chances to 1 for success. So this was all, the whole evening was good. I mean, it really opened up wide.
Good. Okay. Excellent. Well, I was going to say Rebecca, but she's not there. Tim.
Sorry. Yeah. Rebecca had to step out. She had a meeting at 8:30 she needed to be to, but,
no worries. You're here.
Yeah. For me, honestly, it was when, John corrected himself. Because I've noticed that in myself, a lot lately, and since I've been learning the mind models, I find that I'll say something or I'll do something and all of a sudden I'll go, wait a minute, and I'll correct and get myself more resourceful. Also, when you were talking about the bumpers and, and asking those effective questions, to keep us in that flow, if you will, of the now.
Absolutely.
And it's funny now that I know where you were going with the now, because I feel kind of silly. Anyway, I knew that, but yeah, just getting myself more resourceful and correcting myself. Just that was just a big aha for me. So
cool, yeah. And it's really weird because we have these sort of silly awarenesses, I call them, where we wind up, we knew it before, but we didn't know what we didn't know. And now the dots are connected and it's like 10 times more meaningful, but we knew it before. It's like, okay, what's going on here?
Right.
Like, it's not a surprise, but it's darn surprising when you're noticing.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Awesome. So, Jamie, you're left, and John.
Well, I would.
And Trevor.
I love the fact I literally was just thinking of asking John to go look at his video, and you guys brought that up, and so because it has been amazing to watch. As far as this goes, I think I'm looking at my notes because I really agree. I think that the 1.2, I mean, you saw my reaction that I can't imagine not trying for one and only trying 1.2 times. So that was something huge and sad. And then also, hold on.
By the way, that statistic generally does not apply to people with entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
Okay, if you are an entrepreneur, most people who become entrepreneurs, you can just generally ask them, how many times will you attempt something until you like just quit and walk away? Like, what do you think your average is? Well, people will, you got to put up your bullshit meter, and has to be turned up to 10. But at the end of the day, some people, I'll try, 3 or 4 times, maybe. Those are the 1 or 2 times type of people. But some people will just look you straight in the face and go, I don't know about you, but if it's important to me, I just won't quit until I figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
those are the entrepreneurs. Those are the people that actually make it as an entrepreneur because they won't quit. They just go because it's a challenge and they need to see that change.
Well, that comes to one of the reasons that I love the mind models, because it did connect the dots for me and from what I used to do, and also with my own brain injury. But I have so many people that come to me who are stuck and who can't, why, and I'm like, stop asking that question. And it's so neat to start learning how that I can actually help them in the sense of asking them better questions. I mean, I've already tried that on my daughter and I, and that was huge. And so we had a very nice long conversation. That doesn't always happen. And so I just think that it's great for my own communication with other people. Also in what I do, but also just in life in general. I think it just makes it even less stressful on me. So yeah, it was great. 9 or 10, it always is for me. So
okay. So points of improvement, may I share, Jamie?
Yeah.
Okay. One is not really a point of improvement. It's another factoid. And it's about more along the lines of John Cooter and his worry before. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I think I should be mentioning it 2 or 3 times. I probably haven't mentioned it at all, but it's just another study that was done. 97% of the stuff we worry about never happens to us.
Mm-hmm.
Only 3% of the things we actually worry about actually come true. That study has been replicated in university after university after university psych departments, and it's highly validated. And it pops around. Sometimes it's 98, sometimes it's 95 or 96, but it's in the high 90s. 97 tends to be the average of all of them put together. Like what do we worry about doesn't happen to, like mostly doesn't happen to us. Now, worry is not necessarily a horrible thing. It's paralyzing worry is. We are literally rehearsing how to avoid problems in our brain. If we're doing that dress rehearsal to figure out a way out of a problem that doesn't exist, we're preempting the negative to some degree.
See, I see that problem solving and not worrying.
You know what? That's the whole thing that one of the studies pointed out. The people that don't worry and problem solve are in fact, slightly less more effective than the people that worry and problem solve. So worry does have a positive bent to it.
Got it.
Okay, so worry is not
worrying a little more.
No, it's like you're probably worrying enough. If you worry about things, if you have that sense of dread or whatever, it's a motivator for people who are problem solvers.
Okay, because that does, but it's just short-lived.
It tends to be shorter lived.
Mine's a little shorter lived, and then I try to go into that. But that's been something that I've kind of evolved through too.
That's one of the realities of people who are good problem solvers. But if you don't have a problem solving demeanor or mindset, then your shift to problem solving is truncated and moved into worry. That's not a good thing, because then you get depressed and worried.
So now, does the mind models help people who do not have a problem solving mind to then kind of come through that?
Yes.
Yes.
How do you know?
I'm totally relating here, Blair.
Personal experience.
Pick me.
Yeah. You're the expert. You're the resident expert on it. Cool.
Well, it's just like I was saying just a minute ago of, being able to get myself resourceful. Since I've learned the mind models, being able to get myself resourceful and correct myself. Because before was very much this way, very worried, and I would paralyze worry to the point where I wouldn't move, I wouldn't do anything because, this might happen or that might happen. And now I actually have a process of working through it and getting myself resourceful. And so that's why I say, I mean, that was, the course correction that John had and that just all kind of resonated. This whole night's resonated with me. So cool. Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's great.
Great. John, any comments here?
Well, I really appreciate getting that feedback, and I will go back and look at a couple of those earlier videos and see that difference. It's really nice to so I have a sense of it, but I didn't have a sense of the magnitude. So that's even more confidence building and self-confidence inspiring. Let's see. It tonight reinforced for me that what you talked about, the nature of the mind models, that the ease of adoption of them, it's actually, it's easier once you understand them, it's easier to use them than not.
Exactly. Yes.
And my case in point is why. The word why has almost become a dirty word. I mean, when I hear it, it's immediately, it's this like a sour note on the piano or something.
Yep.
We've added it to the cuss words in our home.
Some of my clients have why jars. Like instead of swear jars, they have why jars.
And I think that for me, the biggest part of the change has been the evaluation versus judgment. I've known that judgment wasn't effective and wasn't helping, but the ability to change it had just eluded me for a long time. And somehow that mind model just clicked, and it's just like there's this big safe space that didn't used to be there.
Well, that's a good way to put it.
It's basically more than just that one, because it takes, there's about three of the mind models that come together. And when you pair effective, ineffective, internal versus external, and judgment versus evaluation, your brain subconsciously knows that those all go together.
Okay. Yeah.
So
they're hard to separate in some ways.
Well, exactly. They are very difficult to separate. Yet all I have to focus on once you know the other two is judgment versus or evaluation versus judgment. And yeah, I've already planted that conscious information in your brain, and the subconscious is now peaked and stirred, and it just sort of all goes click, 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 and it all falls together more times than not, like literally 80+% of the time. So it works, and it's designed to do that. It just test after test after test. And if that doesn't work, the only other one that you need is curiosity. And then with that, all of those pieces, it just transforms everything. Okay.
And Connie asked me to admit or confess. This was another Tuesday night. I was kind of tired coming in, and I thought about either not coming or just not getting on the panel, and because I didn't want to, whatever. I'm so glad I did.
Cool.
We are.
So it was a 10.
Super. Great. Trevor.
The thing I was going to mention, a lot of people already mentioned, but it was the insight about the people only trying on average 1.2 times. And I was noticing that there's certain things in my life where I definitely fall into that statistic. And then there's other things, like when I really focus on them or they're important to me, where I definitely blow way past that. And those are the things that have become strengths or what I'm successful in. So just sort of realizing that, and then also noticing patterns where when I do fall into that stat and I'm not really giving a lot of real attempts at something, I'm usually got a lot of excuses for that, or excuses for not even willing to try it more. So I kind of thought that was kind of cool. So that was my biggest takeaway.
Cool.
Would that be would that be, I mean, I think that would play along with the fact that either it's something you're not interested in, or it's one of those things that are really hard that you have to, that you're maybe not passionate about. I don't like that word, but to where you're not so wanting it.
That was a thought that I had too, that like the things that I really want, it's easy to keep going.
Yeah.
And I think realistically, nobody has enough time to try everything that many.
No. Yeah.
So it just makes sense.
The more conscious you are about your filtering process, the more effective you'll be, and the less you'll tend to beat yourself up, basically, for not choosing effectively, because your effectiveness will improve. The quality of your life actually gets to go up because you're consciously making choices about what you want to attempt at and what you don't.
Yeah.
And there isn't guilt around it. And there isn't beating up about it, like self-loathing or anything negative. It's that's not a thing I want to do in my life. It's like golf. I tried golf. It's not for me. I don't love it. I've sold my clubs. I tried motorcycling, and my God, I love getting on a motorcycle. But don't put me on a golf course. Well, you can, and I'll do it for social reasons, but I won't
drive a mean golf cart.
Oh, cool. There you go.
I carry the drink and point at the balls.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But that's neat though, because I think what you said was you become more effective in your own life. So your time becomes more important. You honor it more. You make better decisions. So then you're not guilty for those things because you know that you made a wise decision. It wasn't because you're not trying. It's because it didn't fit into your model that you now are going for success.
Exactly. It's not your model of your world.
Right.
Okay.
And not always have to please other people.
Yes. And one of the things that I was going to say is I had 2 points. One was the factoid about the 97% of worry. And the other one was, Jamie, you sometimes use good or bad, but and I was, especially, you had a good conversation with your daughter. I'm thrilled that it was effective. I would suggest going for effective versus ineffective.
Good. All right. See, good. I'm going to get that word out of my vocabulary.
Good. Oh, I'm going to get that word out of my vocabulary. Effective.
Effective. It was a very effective conversation.
Well, was it? And that's the whole thing. When it was, you know it.
Yeah.
And you think about talking to yourself in your head and asking yourself, was that good or was that effective?
And it was effective.
It was effective. And how did you feel? And don't use the word good.
No, no, I felt very, I don't know. Let's see. Hold on a minute. It's not good. I felt like we connected.
There you go.
Finally, we weren't talking at each other. We were talking with each other.
Now, when you said good before, did you notice that connectedness could be ignored far more easily?
Sure.
The detail of what actually happened. But when you were effective and you said, okay, I'm going to describe what happened consciously as that was effective. Now, for the feeling word, I'm not going to attach it to good. I asked you to find a different word. And when you said, I felt connected or I feel connected, you lit up like a Christmas tree.
Yeah, Willie, you actually feel it. And good,
I know.
Good is when now that I'm conscious of that, good really is just kind of a lazy word.
It's a general term,
right?
Like with everything, right? We say, the food was good. How are you today? I'm good. It's an overall generalization, right? Instead of using, the food was
delicious,
delicious, tasty. Yeah, it's kind of a general word.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So one of the things that you wind up doing here is becoming specific, and that increases the accuracy in which your brain now views your relationship with your daughter.
That's great. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. So that is just by default. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. With that, it's basically a wrap tonight, guys. So thank you all very, very much for everything.
Thank you.
Well, hold me accountable now on not using good.
Yeah, and try to stay away from, go back to the whole lesson on effective and ineffective, because good, bad, right, or wrong. We don't want to go there. We want to go to effective, ineffective, or that worked or that didn't work.
Yeah,
Those words are very, very powerful, and they help us do that, see how we are viewing ourselves in the cognitive, and then we can ask ourselves the emotional and get the clear separation between the two, and we get cognitive and emotive working as they should, hand in glove, and firing, and with accuracy.
Yeah.
It changes the quality of one's life.
I'm going to get rid of the word. Okay. I'm going to have a jar that I'm going to have my why, but I'm going to have my good jar.
Okay. Your good why jar. Okay, guys.
Have a great evening. How about that?
Yeah, you have a great evening too. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.